to our leadership. We observe all the protocols, and we appreciate our very dynamic leaders, and they're young and very dynamic, and we do appreciate that. For today, I elected to talk to you about drug and alcohol abuse in Zimbabwe, and what are some of the key issues and highlights in terms of the critical concerns. Why does it become so topical? And I will share a presentation at the end, probably through Pastor Mnashe. Once there's some information that I've requested from somewhere that I want to also put into that presentation, so that it can be beneficial to you in terms of what issues we will be talking about. So I want to make this discussion or talk very simple, very concise even, but just to bring you up to speed why we have issues to do with the drug abuse and alcohol abuse, not only in Zimbabwe, but in across the world. So to begin with, as a way of background, why do people use drugs? And is this a new phenomenon? And if it's not, why has it become topical of late? So if we look in our traditional, systems or traditional communities, we'll find that there's been a lot of activity around issues to do with drugs. This is not something new. This is not something that is absolutely new. But for example, we have our own homegrown drugs like marijuana and various intoxicants. Even when you talk about various forms of alcohol, that we have a lot of traditionally brewed alcohol affects that have been used across generations, even before we had the interaction between the Western civilization and our own civilization, this side of the global South. So if you look at the functions of drugs in that context, you realize that drugs have been associated with ceremonies where in various circumstances, even sometimes traditional weddings, people would come and take their alcohol, and some would believe that before you do certain rituals, you have to snuff something and get intoxicated. And even in the Bible, for our ardent Bible readers, we hear of various drugs like mandrake that were given to various people for various issues. Even the very, topical one, where the two daughters of Lot, they thought, let's use alcohol to immobilize our father. And we look at, before that, Noah. The Bible talks about him growing the vine and taking of the fruit of the vine. And an event that culminated in one of the three boys being cursed by the father because of seeing his nakedness. So this issue of being intoxicated and being under the influence of drugs is not really new. It has been, in one way or another, fortunately or unfortunately, for good or for better or worse, you've been embedded in our societies. So there's that element of drugs being used as a way of, as part of rituals. But we do not have, a history that talks about drugs being such a critical part of our communities that they begin to take them as a daily activity. Now, that brings us to the discourse of drug abuse, which simply put is the habitual misuse of illegal drugs. And within that, you also have your illegal substances. And we also have the same with alcohol, where people habitually take alcohol. So when usually people talk about drugs, they don't realize we also have a serious, very serious alcohol problem. And I'll talk about it in a while, particularly in Zimbabwe, but across the world, people excessively drink, which immediately has or apparently has a lot of negative implications for their bodies in terms of affecting the liver, affecting your neurological system, even your cognitive function is impaired by drug use and even alcohol use. So traditionally, we don't have drugs as being a way of embedded as a cultural or a way of life of our communities.